Hey geeks, what is happening? How's it going? What's going on? Hope everybody's doing well. So apparently, 2025 is the year of the compendium. Um, I think I might have posted a picture of this in the community, uh, but I've gone on this spree where I've started collecting these compendiums. It seems like the comic publishers are starting to ramp up their production of these compendiums. I guess the format is taking off, and I can see why. Omnibuses are the traditional omnibus, hardcover omnibus is kind of an unwieldy object to read, and I'll give you an example here. Let's see. Let's pull this one off the bookshelf. Okay, so this is JLA by Grant Morrison Omnibus. It's a hardcover. Man, it's huge. This is a huge book, man. In the words of Tiny E, man, that omnibus is huge. So, yeah, this is, it weighs, I don't know how much it weighs, but it's probably about 5 pounds, I'm guessing. This is five, maybe 6 pounds. Um, you could do some chair exercises with it. Are you like me? Are you getting like all these chair exercise videos popping up in your YouTube feed? Because man, that's just like at my age, that's not cool, man. I'd like to speak with the management about that because I mean I'm getting up there in years, but I'm not ready for chair exercises yet. But but I'll happily exercise with one of these omnibuses. So yeah, I haven't busted the shrink wrap open on this sucker, so if you want it, make me an offer. That's a joke. I'm actually keeping this because I'm going to read it anyway. So yeah, these are heavy, and so like you're not just going to kind of like sit on the train and read these casually as you're going to work. Um, or bring them with you on a plane on your vacation. Well, I mean, you could. I would do something like that, but I'm not like everybody else. So, so that's an omnibus. Now, a compendium. This is the hot new compendium that's out right now. I think it's a #1 bestseller. G.I. Joe. Image put it out, but it's the original Marvel years, which I read. I think the first 30 issues I collected them when I was a kid. What's really cool about this one is they printed it on sort of that old style newsprint. I don't think it's the exact type of newsprint that you got in the 80s that fades and decays after a while. Um, but it is definitely a newsprint type of paper. Um, and this collects the first 50 issues of G.I. Joe. I have to remember about that microphone. And it's thick, but because it's this paper, it's actually quite light. It's just it's not much heavier than like just like a big mass publication paperback. But yeah, it's got all the covers in it, and I've been see my bookmarker there. I've been reading it, of course. I got about a quarter of it to finish. Man, I forgot. I mean, I always knew GI Joe was good, but I forgot how good it is. Um, the thing about it is the way that the writer Larry Hama, I have to think that he was involved with most of the layouts because the book rotates through a cast of sort of repeating artists. There's not as much Herb Trimpe in this book as I thought that there was. I thought that he had done more issues. Um, and maybe in the later issues. I'm up to issue 33 on this now. This is the it's the cover when they send that kid to assassinate Cobra Commander. Uh, but the thing is there's a consistent um, there's a consistent form of action from panel to panel through all of these issues. It's just I think when Larry Hama wrote it, he had a very clear vision in his mind of how the sequence of action should go in each of these panels. And I think that's really kind of what made this book a standout at the time and still is. It makes it a classic. Um, the artwork is sufficient. It never needed to be like super stylized because we're talking just, it's basically a military, you know, I don't know. It's basically a military opera is what it is between these two opposing forces of GI Joe and Cobra. But I forgot how some of the concepts are just insane. Like Cobra's headquarters is in Springfield, Missouri, but they basically take over the entire town and brainwash them. So like they do this right in the middle of America and get away with it for a long time. Like they build their base underneath it. All of the citizens are like hail Cobra, and so they're totally down with the Cobra program, and they're like recruiting the citizens to be part of the army and stuff. And GI Joe, like they don't know initially like where their headquarters, like they're actually like have taken over this town and brainwashed all the citizens. But Cobra is also trying to figure out where GI Joe's headquarters are at, and at one point they do, and they attack them. They destroy them, but it's more of the way they constructed it. It's like they destroy a facade. Like they don't realize that GI Joe has built this massive underground, headquarters with several layers to it. And then GI Joe actually goes about. They start to improve it. They reconstruct it and everything. So it's just there's nonstop action in the book, which is good. When you go back to comics of this period, like the action was the main thing. One of the things I've noticed recently, I was going to make a video about this actually. One of the things I've noticed recently, by way of reading some modern comics, is that there's actually not a lot of action. Um, and sometimes that works, and sometimes it doesn't. And I don't think superhero comics should have two or three issues in a row where there's just not much action going on. I don't understand that. It's more like these days a lot of them are like spending time talking about their feelings and and it's just not that there's anything wrong with that. That's part of the character development, but there was a way that comic book writers in the 70s and 80s and 90s even, but especially I think the 70s and the 80s, were able to go about that while still peppering in enough action to keep to keep the comic book reader satisfied. Because most people are coming to these books for the battle scenes. You want to see Superman fighting a giant robot or Brainiac 5. You want to see Batman taking on a team of ninjas, um, and you want that in every issue. You know. Anyway, so there are just fantastic sequences, though, of combat, hand to hand combat in this book. There is one that really makes some of them just make me like really just get happy and smile a lot. Um, and it's just so consistent. It doesn't matter who the artist is on each book. So I got to do some research on this. I got to think that Larry Hama was really sort of the director of GI Joe, like in all facets. Like he was kind of looking over the shoulder of the artist and telling them, "I want the layout of this panel to be like this, that, and the other thing." I don't know if he was doing thumbnails or something like that with his scripts. The kind of the way that Alan Moore does. But I want to find out. There is an issue that was drawn by Marie Severin And she does, I don't know, I've seen her do a couple of issues, but she wasn't like um, a main artist. I think this might be the sequence or one of them here. So you see what I'm talking about? The action from panel to panel. You just don't see that in a lot of comic books, especially today. And you didn't see that much, I think, in the '90s either. At least not in the major publishers. The indie guys were doing it though, because the indie guys grew up. The '90s. Some of the indies '90s guys, were inspired by stuff like this by GI Joe. But it really, I think it really adds weight to the term sequential art. This is art, and it's done in a sequential manner to convey action via the storytelling, or the storytelling via the action. Yeah, that issue I just showed you, that was issue number 24. That was the art was by Russ Heath. Let's see what else with goodies we've got in this book. Yeah, just a rotating cast of artists on this. That um, on the cover they say Trimpe, Vosberg, and Wiggum, but I've only seen a couple of issues where Trimpe did the art, and I kind of I thought that he had done actually a lot of the art on this book because Herb Trimpe would be perfect for GI Joe. Maybe in the later issues he became more of a standard bearer of the art, but definitely all of the artists did a really good job of in kind of sticking to a standard art style. So there's not like a whole like it's a team effort here. Like they don't go to any great lengths to put their sort of individual stamp on the artwork, um, which is good for a book like this. I think you want to have that consistent type of art style, you know, because of the subject matter. It's just sort of just it's basically this black and white military good versus evil organizations, one of the other cool books is when they attack Snake Eyes in his cabin. Dude's trying to get some R&R, and Destro and some of his minions come up on him. Um, yeah, the scene where they take on the cabin. Let me pull my bookmarker out here. They attack him in the cabin. This is a cool scene. Destro is a better villain than Cobra Commander. And then it just kind of goes page to page. I mean, you got you got Joe's outside fighting a couple of Cobra dudes. You got a Cobra dude on the roof. He's going to drop a bomb into the cabin and try to blow it up, even though he knows Destro, his boss, is in there. But Destro has been taking too long to come out of the cabin, so he's like, "I'm just going to blow up the whole thing and take credit for killing Snake Eyes." Um, you've got the tension created where the bomb he drops the bomb into the chimney. Destro's getting attacked by Snake Eyes wolf, his pet wolf, and then it blows up, and you have a cliffhanger. There's a lot of good cliffhangers in GI Joe. There's a lot of good cliffhangers. All right, let me. I'll find my. I took my bookmarker out and I lost my place. That's okay. That I can find it though. So that's one. That's one compendium. What else do we have here? I also got the Injustice Gods Among Us Compendium One. Man, I've been wanting to read this for a long time. I bought a couple of like the thin TPBs, like Volume One. I never bought the big omnibus. And then when I saw that there was a compendium, I was like, okay, we'll ingest it that way. I assume there'll be 2 volumes of this. Look at that. There's Superman who's he's doing a Bane on Batman. He's doing a Bane on Batman. For those of you who don't know, and you probably do know, um, essentially Superman goes crazy in this book, and he becomes a bad Superman, and Batman swears to team him down, but sort of bad Superman gets a certain amount of superheroes of the Justice League on his side to sort of make the world see things his way. Essentially, it's Superman saying, look, the human Earth, and their governments are just out of control. We've tried being nice about it, but they just, these supervillains and everything. It's just too chaotic. We're done playing nice. So he basically proclaims himself, I guess, like ruler of the world. And Batman's like, nah, I don't think I can go along with that plan. So, that kind of tension has always been between Batman and Superman. And this really just takes that to the 11th, turns it up to 11. I didn't know that there were so many of these comics that it would require 2 compendiums, but I didn't know they published that much. Also, this is based on a video game. I guess the video game came up with that plot first, and then DC translated it into the comics, and the comics turned out to actually be pretty good or pretty popular. Now this one, not as thick as G.I. Joe, but it's definitely heavier. Not as heavy as a compendium, but this one is printed on, not that newsprint that G.I. Joe is printed on. This is printed on pretty much the same kind of print paper stock that the original comics were printed on. And so it's sort of that glossy, high gloss. Not super high gloss, but I'm not. There's all kinds of different paper stocks they use today with these comics, but it's a heavier stock for sure. There's more ink, I think, on the page. Let's see here. I think they have, yeah. I think they have the. Commissioner Gordon and his daughter Barbara. I think they do all the covers in here too. Yeah. I'll read you a little bit of the synopsis here. After the Joker pushes the Man of Steel too far, Superman decides that humanity must be protected from itself by imposing martial law across the planet. With many superpowered metahumans siding with Superman's regime, Batman's resistance seems to be at a grave disadvantage. But although the Dark Knight may be outmuscled, the world's greatest strategist still has a few tricks that may change the tide of the war. Based on the hit video game Injustice Gods Among Us. This chronicles the first 3 years of Superman's absolute rule. Man, this event went on for a long time in DC. There's a Wonder Woman. Yeah, I didn't know that Injustice went on for so long, that it was so extensive. Here's some Catwoman. You see Catwoman on the cover there, consoling a rather upset Batman. I think this is the period when Catwoman and Batman get married, or is that after this? I have to go and look at my. So I did get it. I did get it. There's so many events, especially with DC. DC is like crazy with the events. Maybe Marvel is too, to a certain extent, but they're just Marvel's events are just like. I love Marvel. I do, but man, I gotta say, the past 10, maybe 20 years, I just don't think Marvel has been up to snuff in terms of DC. You know, I mean, I got beefs with both companies, but DC just seems like they've had more interesting events and interesting ideas since the 2000s. It just, no, you go back to like the 60s and 70s and even 80s. Yeah, Marvel, hands down. I mean, DC still had some really cool stuff. I love both companies, but to me, Marvel, when I was a kid, Marvel was it. Like, they were the must have comics. Um, but I think DC is kind of, they just have more interesting stuff going on. All right. Speaking of DC again. So, third compendium, JSA Volume 1. Love me some JSA. Justice Society of America. And this is this. So I got this because this is that period of time of JSA that I have not read, which is essentially the '90s. I think into the 2000s. I think everything in this book goes from about mid '90s to early 2000s with JSA. And when I was reading JSA, I was reading the '80s, when they brought them back from the golden age. And what I knew of them from the golden age, I was only kind of getting in, I guess, some reprints that DC was doing at the time. But reading DC comics, you kind of always knew the origins of those golden age heroes because they would sort of update them in the modern, comics. And especially when you got to Crisis on Infinite Earths, um, you really got a lot of the backstory of a lot of those characters. And then also plus just reading, magazines and stuff about comics, like Comic Scene back then was probably the only one of the only comics magazines. This is before Wizard and all that. You would just learn by osmosis, stuff like that. But yeah, this covers that JSA period, and some of these I've picked up, as single issues here and there. Um, but it's good to have some pretty good artwork there. It's good to have it like in chronological order. That's what I like, all in one place. And I don't have to go tracking down all these issues. That's some interesting artwork. Who did this? Benefiel, penciler. I don't know who that is. Benefiel? They just give the last name. Hmm. This is also this is also printed on that sort of heavier gloss paper stock, which makes it a heavier book than that GI Joe book. That GI Joe book is the only one I know that's kind of on that old school um, newsprint paper. There you got a good cover. The Martian Manhunter, Doctor Fate. Yeah, this is the synopsis here. Let's see. Creators are Jeff Johns and David S. Goyer. Goyer does a lot of TV now. People don't know, or a lot of people don't know, that he was writing comics for a long time. Um, James Robinson, artist Steve Sadowski and Michael Bear, and more. Investigating the death of a founding JSA member, the current Starman, Our Man, Star Spangled Kid, Hawk Girl, and Black Canary must come together to work alongside the original Atom Smasher and Sand to uncover the truth. Amidst all of this, a new hero will rise, and a modern Justice Society of America will be born, facing terrifying new foes and bringing long forgotten heroes back into the fray. The new JSA will go on to shape the fate of the world itself. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in here. There's a lot of different comics. Um, for starters, JSA number 1 through 25, JSA Annual number 1, All Star Comics number 1 and 2, All American Comics number 1, a bunch of one shots. Day of Judgment 1 through 5, that was a miniseries. Um, Stars and Stripe number 8 through 9, Star Spangled Comics 1, Thrilling Comics 1, Young Justice number 16, Secret Files, a lot of Secret Files. I think there's that. Storyline on Themyscira, I think. Yeah, so I read the synopsis of this period of time with JSA on Wikipedia. I think there's some time travel involved, of course. you know, and well, see here we got the Flash in action. So of course, there's always some time travel. Looks like Evil Flash too. This is kind of this was um, sort of portrayed in the Flash movie. He's kind of running around him, hitting him from all sides. Ah, Mr. Terrific. Mr. Terrific, who will be in the soon to be released Superman movie. Yeah, so very cool. I assume when Compendium 2 is released, that'll pick up chronologically in the mid 2000s or so. So those are my recent compendiums. Um, each one, the GI Joe one is something like 1,100 pages, and uh, these others, I they got to be around 1,900 pages or so. Just looking at the pencilers on this one on JSA. Rags Morales, he did some issues. Russ Heath, Scott Benefiel, Tom Mandrake. Let's see. Let me look at Injustice again. Let's see who's a standout on some of these. Artists: David Yarden, Sergio Davila, Kevin McGuire, Bruno Redondo. Writers from Tom Taylor, Brian Buccellato, Margaret Bonite, and Ray Fox. Is that really his real name? Ray Fox? Fawkes. Wes Abbott did the lettering on all these issues. Wow. Give you another look. Here's the first cover of Injustice. Yeah, very cool. Very cool. A lot of. Look at these two together. All right, let's do this. Here you go. Zoom out. Is that is that enough comics for you to read? Is that enough for you? It's enough for me. Well, it's not enough for me. Clearly, I need I need more. I'm already looking at that Transformers compendium that comes out in June. I'm definitely going to get that. I'm definitely going to get that. I've been trying to put together those Marvels Transformers comics. Oh man, there's just it's just such a long run, and um, just tracking down the individual issues. It's just time consuming. Um, and I have, let's see, there were those big IDW books that were coming out. I don't know if those covered the Marvel years or not. Maybe they just covered the IDW years. But yeah, if you think about all of the Transformers comics pages between Marvel and IDW, and for a while, wasn't there another publisher that had that property as well? Um, that would just probably fill a warehouse worth of story and art. So compendiums for Transformers definitely make sense. Uh, they, they'll probably have. I mean, if they get everything into Compendium, including the UK comics, now the manga, um, is it's its own separate thing. I think they would keep that separate. But if they get all the Marvel IDW stuff into compendiums, those are probably going to take up 10 volumes of over 1,000 pages each. I'm just guesstimating. That's insane, but also really cool. That would be really cool. So anyway, all right. Well, we'll leave it at the 32-minute mark. Um, First video of the year, of the new year. So I hope you have a prosperous and wonderful 2025, and you read a just. I hope you just read like a ton, like a literal ton of comics. you, you, you have to be the Hulk to pick up all those comics. And yeah, have a great comic book filled 2025, and may all your dreams come true. And then as always, stay geek.